This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network.
Welcome to The Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Hello and welcome indeed. We certainly are glad that you're here with us. We are coming to you again, and as always, from beautiful Middletown, Connecticut, home of world headquarters. I almost forgot that part. And as if that's not exciting enough, my guest today is joining us from Portugal. I don't know that Middletown, Connecticut can compete with that. At any rate, my guest is Carolyn Lebanowski, and Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. It's so good to be here with you.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you too. It's a long time coming. I don't know why, but I was thinking about whether I should try to attach a theme to this conversation. And I don't think I've ever done it before on the show, but it seems to me appropriate that change could be a theme for this show. And I'm going to guess that compared to you, the way that most of us define change is fairly modest. And so I think I would like to start by having you share your story of change initially with geography and how that came to be. I mean, that strikes me as a fairly momentous decision.
So great question. So there have been a lot of changes in my life over the years, but geography was a trip to Paris on my 50th birthday. And born in Texas, raised in Texas, never been to Europe, Mexico's probably the only place I'd ever really been. And my husband and I, we were in Paris, and out of nowhere, I said, I could live here. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I think I could live here. And I didn't know why. I was in love with the culture, the architecture. It was just the energy. And he's like, I don't think so. I don't think you could do that. It's way too cold here. And coming from Texas, I really don't like cold weather. But so he said, are you serious? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, someday, when we retire, maybe we could come and stay for a while. And so it's like, well, let's talk about that. So we did some research, and over the next few years, we went to go visit different places in Europe and Italy and just different places. And it was like the three bears. It was like too cold, too hot, not the right vibe. And then we had never been to Portugal. So we took a trip to Portugal, and my husband was 3 years from retiring at the time. And we went into Lisbon, and it was beautiful. Lisbon is absolutely beautiful. And somebody said, you have to go to Cascais, which is about 30 miles outside of Lisbon on the Atlantic coast. So we went on a train. We got off the train, and just right across the way is a beach called Queen's Beach. And we walked over to the beach and we looked at it. And I swear to God, Mark, we looked at each other and it was just a mic drop. And it was like everything about it felt right. And he said, do you want to do it? Do you want to at least start the process? So we have 5 children between us, and that would be the only thing that would have held us back. But they were all adults. They're thriving. They're doing great. We have no grandchildren. And so we started the process, and within 2 years, all of our belongings were on a ship. And it got caught up in the waters over COVID. So we were
Ooh.
stuck here without any furniture and just had to go from Airbnb to Airbnb. And at my age, I'm not used to camping or, and you have one suitcase. So I learned to live with, three pairs of pants and six t-shirts, which was my wardrobe for a couple months.
I
And
always tell people that the closest that I'm ever going to get to camping is Holiday Inn Express. Um,
I'm right there with you.
so the word that jumped out at me when you were talking just then is process. Um, I'd never thought about it that way before, but of course, if you're going to take on a move that momentous, there has to be a process. Um, I don't know that you need to go into all of the details, but what are the things you have to take into consideration? Banking has to be one of them. Healthcare
It,
has to be one of them.
Yes, yes, yes. Whether
Wow.
you bring your things or not, like in this expat community, most people, and I find this shocking because it's not my style. Most people came with like six suitcases. That's it. They sold their homes, they sold their cars, they sold everything. We opted not to do that. So we downsized tremendously and then just brought all of our favorite things. But yes, healthcare was number one at the top of our list. Banking, we had to get a bank before we ever could move here for the right paperwork. We had to have signed a lease, so we
Hmm.
had to find a place to live. Um, and the biggest thing you think about is what if I don't like it?
Well,
And the easy answer there is you go back home.
I was going to say if you made the change one way, I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't seem to me that
Yeah.
making the change to go back the other way might be all that difficult. Um, I'm 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 connecting all these dots while you're talking. And one of the things that makes me wonder is, and frankly, the question is prompted at least in part by some of the things that I know about you. Did you find that change begets change? And you and I were involved in another conversation some time ago, and in that conversation, in response to someone else's question, you used the word courage.
Mm,
And I wonder if change begets courage,
mhm,
which somehow compels more change. Does that make any
mhm,
sense?
It does. It does. And I'll respond in two ways to that question is yes, it does take courage. And for me, courage also equates to growing edges. I've always been, I don't know if you know anybody like this, Mark, somebody he's very curious.
No, I don't know anybody with
I
any
don't
curiosity, especially me.
that would be you. So curious, and I'm always wanting to learn and to do more or be more. And this was a part of that because for me, the older I was getting, it felt like my box was getting smaller, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. I'm just going to throw this out here. I watched my parents' world shrink.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that makes
yeah,
perfect sense.
yeah, that's exactly it. And once we got here, it was things like I'm gonna give you 2 examples real quick. One was, buying laundry detergent in a supermarket where you don't speak the language.
Ah,
Mm. When all you want is something to wash your clothes that doesn't have a smell to it.
ooh,
I stood in that aisle for 30 minutes with my silly little phone, Google translating every single one to see if I could. I, I was so not upset. I was so energized and excited and sad and mad and everything, but because I had to figure out how to get this laundry detergent. That's like working that part of your brain.
yeah.
Second example, real quick. So we're on the Atlantic Ocean, and I see people on set boards, stand up paddle boards, right? And they're out there on the water, and I'm like, I can do that. And when Wayne was like, well, you need a lesson, I go, okay, I'll take a lesson, but I can do that. So again, that's just another physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, I am challenged here in the best of ways, in the best of ways.
And I think the fact that you can say that means that you're open to being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And likening that back to your earlier sensation that maybe your box was getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
There, I don't think there are a lot of people who would welcome that, seek it out,
Mm-hmm.
want to be challenged in those ways.
Well,
It's so. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, it's true. It's very true. And I took great issue, and somebody on the friendship bench explained this to me so perfectly. But I took great issue with when we made the decision to move from Texas to Portugal, that literally half of our friends were like, "How can you do that? Like, why are you doing that? Why would you move to another country? Why would you leave your 5 children in the States? Why don't you just go visit? Why do you have to live there? I don't understand. I could never do that. I would never leave my family." Okay. Other 50% were like, "Oh my God, I just want to be like you. I'm going to do that exactly when I can retire. And I thank you for being the inspiration. Thank you for carrying that torch, for lighting that trail." Um, and I'm like, okay, well, neither one of us are right or wrong. And it was Charlotte who said that a study she found that we are filled with explorers and farmers, and the world needs both.
Mm,
The world needs explorers and farmers, and farmers don't need to make explorers wrong, and explorers don't need to make farmers wrong, because we need both of us. And once she put that in my head, it made perfect sense, because now when I engage with people who are like, "Why are you there? I don't understand." I get it. They're a farmer. Love it. Love farmers. But I'm not one.
Charlotte, I will say for the sake of our audience, is a woman who moved from Denmark to California some 25 years ago or something. Um, I may be on the verge of changing my mind about something, because I do recall the conversation that you were just recalling. And my take on the people who said they could not do what you were doing was that they were fearful.
Mm,
But when you put it in that context of those folks being farmers, suggesting they're fearful doesn't seem fair to me anymore.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yeah, they're very comfortable doing what they're doing, and that's great.
yeah,
That's so great. And they do have courage and other things, courage to stay, maybe.
yeah. Elsewhere in that same conversation, and I'm going to bring this up now because of what you just said. And also, actually, I think it was in the same general area of that conversation in which you mentioned courage. You talked about peace and calm.
Mm,
And by the way, this is one of the 20 million things that makes me love human nature. Um, to use your categories, farmers probably achieve their peace and calm by staying put and being comfortable in that predictable environment.
mhm.
But others find it. And you said growing edges. How did you mean that? Did you mean expanding your boundaries? What do you mean by growing edges?
I'm always looking at my growing edges, and that's the kind of the scenario of the box getting smaller. It's my I have this visual mark that when I'm living my life with intention, I have this vision of always spiraling up.
Hmm.
So the the further you go up, your edges are changing.
Okay.
They're growing edges.
Okay.
And
So I misinterpreted. And
okay.
when you were talking about edges, I thought you meant edginess,
Oh no.
which is so not you.
No, no,
Interesting.
no. Yeah.
So might in your definition, might we equate edges to, oh boy, this is a problematic term, boundaries. And I don't mean boundaries that you necessarily set for yourself, but pushing your boundaries outward. Is that what you mean?
Yes. 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 Another way to put it. Very nice. Yes. So
So that,
you would use the word pushing, and just because I tend to hold my words in a certain way. So you can say push or you can say grow. So that's why I would call them growing boundaries.
well, and I think I might use the word pushing because most of the time I'm a guy. I was sorry, tangent. We were with some friends of ours, and they had met a couple. They were on a trip somewhere. They had met a couple from Australia. So the gentleman, Gary, who's the friend of ours, they were on a boat, and he decided to go swimming. And he said he was wearing a t-shirt. And at one point he got in trouble in the water. So the woman from Australia saw what was going on and jumped in the water and went over and got a hold of his t-shirt and said to him, "Do you need help?" And I immediately said, well, I would have said to her, "No, I don't need help, and I don't need directions either." Because right, that's what guys do, because we're so stupid. Um, so I think this leads me back to change begetting change. And when you expand your boundaries, don't you feel more capable of expanding your boundaries?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a corollary question. Well, go ahead. Please answer that one first.
Well, I just don't want to get confused either in the sense that this my growing edges and my boundaries or pushing boundaries or the change that I've had, um, it's scary as hell. I mean, let's not let's not kid anybody. It's really scary. And that is what transfers, I think, back to courage. But
Yeah.
yeah, the more you scare yourself, the more you want to scare yourself.
Well, and don't you learn too that whatever it was that you scared you initially was probably not the big deal you thought it was?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
And I
Definitely.
and a corollary question occurs to me. As you're doing that and learning what it teaches you about yourself,
Mhm.
in the here comes the word process again. Um, in that process, do you feel yourself becoming more comfortable with your limitations?
Yes. Understanding what I can do and what I can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have a really good example around that in change. One of the biggest changes I made in my life was when I went from 27 years in corporate America to working for a nonprofit spiritual community. If there was a black and a white, or up or a down or any, they're just two very different organizations in how you lead, how you are in the world, how you show up. Um, Everything about it is so different. And I had no idea what I was doing when I left corporate America. But it was one of those growing edges. And it was like, I know I can do this. I know I can do this. I've not done this job, but I have the skill set that I can figure it out.
And did you find, I'm going to put it in a different way. How many of the skills in that set did you find were transferable?
All of them.
And I'll tell you why I was asking the question.
Hmm.
I was in a corporate job. I was working in an insurance company, And I applied to be, I don't think it was the executive director. I think it was probably the, whatever you call, development director for a place here in Connecticut called the Connecticut River Museum.
Oh, wow.
And the guy said to me, the problem with you business people, and I looked around like, you mean me? He said, you want to treat this like a business. I said, oh, sorry. I thought your money was green too. So I was relieved when I heard you say that you thought that was all transferable, because it just seemed logical to me. I mean, the nonprofit, that's an accounting distinction, isn't it?
It is. And this is like a whole nother podcast, but because I came from retail, so I was vice president, retail operations, Macy's, whatever. So the first year I was in the executive director role in this nonprofit organization, I got so excited because all the numbers, I mean, we had made a lot of money. And the accountant came back and said, well, that's not our goal. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It took me a while to kind of process that. And it's like, yes, we want to make money, but then how do you give the money back? So it was
and you're right, we could make another podcast out of that. And I served for a while, first as a board member and then as an executive director of a literacy volunteers group. Same thing.
Exactly.
I was fine as a board member, but when I got to be the executive director,
Yeah.
the way those folks thought about money
Yeah.
made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we are. Actually, you know what? I've never yet said this on a show, and I've always been dying to. And now a word from our sponsors. So we are going to take our first break right now. We'll be back in 3 minutes. So to all of you who have joined us, please stay put. We'll be right back.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brand's distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back, everyone. Carolyn, thank you once again for being here. I seem to be developing this habit wherein during the break, I try to connect a bunch of dots that occurred to me during the first segment. So it occurred to me that instead of doing that during the break, I probably ought to do push-ups or something because I'm never sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. One of the things that you said in the earlier conversation that we've made reference to, and you were talking about your daily routine and about the ways in which you and your husband Wayne start your day. But you said, we have lots of things we want to create. First of all, I just think that's a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful thing, my opinion, for spouses to be able to talk about. I am lucky enough, my desk is wood, that Ann and I can do exactly the same thing, and we do. But I think that connects to discovery, which I think connects to courage. And in that earlier conversation, there were some allusions made to trauma, particularly childhood trauma, from which none of us escape. But you said that it helped you learn to accept, your words, your broken and shiny parts, which is such an amazingly beautiful thing. So maybe it's chicken and egg, but do you find that acceptance comes from discovery, or do you think that discovery makes you more accepting of your broken parts and your shiny parts?
Wow. I don't think, Mark, and that's an excellent question. I don't think I could know my broken parts or my shiny parts if I didn't discover them without the discovery part. For me, I had to do the work. I had to ask the hard questions. I had to look deep enough and long enough to figure out if I had a part in it. You know? And I think one of it's a book I read, I fell in love with. I learned so much from Elizabeth Lesser, but it's a term that I use quite often in parts of my life, my earlier life, and it's the book called Broken Open.
Note to self.
And yeah, Broken Open, and it's those times, Mark, that we've all had them. It's that dark night of the soul, and it basically gave me permission to better understand that in those broken pieces, like I was broken open. I've been broken open more than once in my lifetime. And it's what you do with that. It's what pieces do you pick up and take with you? What pieces do you leave behind? And not that it's ever like, okay, like no, that was really hard. That was hard. But it's kind of you either rise or you stay where you are or you go down. And those just were not an option for me.
I was going through a notebook that I was actually getting ready to throw away because it's full.
Mhm.
So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to toss something that I needed. And I had written the question, and I don't even remember when or why. Were your parents happy? And
Mm.
I wrote your, but I could just as easily have written my. Were my parents happy? And then I noticed that, and I wrote that in black ink, by the way. And then at some point in red ink above it, I had written uncharted territory. So what I hear you saying is the more we discover, the more we come to learn. And I'm also thinking about your notion of making the world bigger. The more accepting we can become of things for which we might have otherwise assigned blame. And I will just say, I was angry at my parents, particularly my father, for a really long time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when the question occurred to me, was he doing the best he could? The answer, yeah, he was. Did he do it all correctly? Nope. Were there things I wish he didn't do? Yep.
Mhm.
But I really don't believe that because he was doing the best he could, I don't think that he was mindful of some of the things that may have been not so positive. I'll put it that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think where I'm heading is, do you think that discovery and that allowing your world to get bigger builds in more room for acceptance?
Yeah, I do. Why?
Why does it? Or are you
Yeah.
asking me
Well,
why?
I'm asking myself.
Well,
Like, why, why would that be? And I think within the discovery part and the acceptance part is I just get to see that everything is not about me. And that was hard for me to learn, being an only child.
oh, wow. Ooh, I didn't
Yeah,
think you were going to say that. My
yeah,
mom was an only child.
yeah. And so, and I surely don't mean to profile all only children, um, but for me, I had a hard time not playing with others, but I felt like my moral compass, my belief system was pretty strong and solid, and that everybody should sing along with me. Um, and that's just not the case. That's just not the case.
One of the things I see as parallel is I'm going to say pretty much every time I get invited to go share my children's books with
Mm,
young kids at school,
mhm,
somebody always asks me, "Well, how do you know if anybody's going to like it?" And my answer is I don't, because I'll never know until I put whatever it is out in the world to see. But
mhm,
I also say to them, I don't believe for a second that I'm the only person in the world who thinks the way I do.
mhm.
So those pieces somehow are going to find
Yeah,
find
yeah.
find their way to whomever, and I suspect you know that feeling because you've written a children's book.
I have, and thank you for bringing that up. But I do want to go back to that because I think what I ended up subscribing to with my whole heart is when I was going through after a broken open phase in my life was high participation, low attachment. And what that means for me, how that translates for me is that if I'm in a scenario, a situation, a relationship, an interview, whatever, that I'm going to highly participate. Like I'm going to play full court. I'm there, I'm present, I'm as real and as raw as I can be. I'm with you. But I literally have no attachment to the outcome. None. Because if I do, Mark, if I attach myself to, hey, I want you to like me. Hey, I hope this interview goes well. Hey, I really want this job. And then I don't get it. So I just go in and I do what I need to do. And if it doesn't work out, then it defaults back to this or something better. And so I'm spiraling up again. I'll always spiral up. It's not like I'm going to get mad or sad or angry because I didn't get that house I wanted, or I didn't get that position I wanted, or my son didn't, we had a breakdown in miscommunication. I mean, I'm just like, we broke down in communication. I'm not going to create a story around it. I'm not going to create drama around it. It's not worth my energy or my time. And that goes back to the peace and calm.
And in that context, is the difference, is the distinction between intellectual detachment and emotional detachment a distinction without a difference? Because it seems to me to do what you just described, you have to know yourself well enough to have both.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely have both. And I also never mean to imply that any of this is easy.
No, I didn't take that implication at all.
Yeah, it's not. And the emotional attachment, and this is a real story that I think several people have already heard. But when my oldest son and his beautiful wife had their first baby, our first grandchild, it was my distinct knowingness that I was going to not only be there in the room when the baby was born, but I was just going to move in with them for a month so I could help and I could, do the dishes and walk the dog and feed them. And I just, that's what we do. And when my wonderful son came back to me in the most loving, beautiful way and said, Mom, we've made some choices and we would like to do this by ourselves for the first 6 weeks. We want to bond with the baby. We want to get to know her. And it's a very sacred time for us. We love you so much and we can't wait for you to be here. And he was speaking and all I'm hearing is like claps and bangs in my head. It's like, this can't be happening. Like, you're talking to me, me. And he's like, Mom, and he never really apologized. It was just like this, we love you and this is the way it's going to be. And what I found there, Mark, was that I had such an emotional attachment to it that I just could not believe that. And I was thinking, well, he's going to rethink that. He knows that he needs, me there. And when I finally had to detach myself, like, what do I really want? Clearly, I'm attached to the outcome. I was so attached. But clearly, if I, as a mother, if I want what my son wants, that's what love is, not what I want.
This could very well be its own conversation as well, but. And I think I may have mentioned this to you at one point, but to me, you managed with trouble your expectations and you were willing to examine them. That's actually kind of rare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hate to do this, but we need to take our second break right now, and let's do it so we can get back.
Okay.
We will be back in 3 minutes.
Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality,
Where potentiality meets reality.
where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on DreamVision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to DreamVision7Radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Oh, sorry, forgot to turn my mic on. Welcome back, everyone, and Carolyn, thank you for sticking around. I'm gonna do that dots connecting thing again. But first, I want to say that we have been talking about discovery and exploration, and I frequently tell people that I sleep better at night when I know there's something that I need to get up the next day and write. And
Wow.
so that leads me to asking you about something that I know you've talked about and written about, which is the power of language. And I love the way you've described, I don't know if I should call it your evolution toward writing or your evolution toward appreciating or recognizing the power of language, or both, but starting with writing letters to your children and then journaling. And then as that evolved, you, as far as I know, you've now written one book for children, and there may be, for all I know, more in the works. I certainly hope so. So what do you think about the power of language? How do you view it is what I really mean to ask.
How it started, how it originated was I needed a way to feel like I was expressing myself. And I didn't have a lot of portals to do that at the time. And so I decided to start writing, but it was the intention, and I even said it in the very first paragraph when I did this 20 years ago. This is never to be read. It is written for myself. It is only for me. And had the expectation that nothing would ever, ever come from that. And so I started writing from the heart. And it would be about anything I was feeling or doing or experiencing. And I just found myself that every time I left the computer, I left the project of whatever I wrote, and usually it was like 5:30 in the morning, I felt so much better. But I would write almost every day, if not every other day. And then one day I went back and I looked at what I wrote, and I'm like, oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. I had already forgotten what that day felt like, but I had captured every essence of it. So I fell in love with that. And then when my first son was born on his first birthday, I wrote him a letter, and the letter was basically around my relationship with him. Because what I was finding is that we were growing together. And so it was how I was transforming as a mother, how he was growing as a baby. And then, 14 months later, my daughter was born. And it's like, well, I have to do it for her as well. Then I had Sean, and had to do it for him. So I will tell you today, they are 33, 32, and 27. And I still write them birthday letters.
And I'll go out on a limb and surmise they appreciate them more every year.
They do. They do. And the best part, it's a book. It's their book. It's their book of their life, because it talks about the phases that they're going through, the relationships they're in, the soccer games that they won, the ballet recitals they were in, their best friends, when they got in trouble. Some of the letters are hard to write. There's been some not so good years, but it's like, hey, this is what happened. This was a dark night for all of us, but you know what? You did this. And I love you so much because, and it's their book. It's their book. Yeah.
And not only that, but you all got through whatever it was, and whatever it was didn't constitute the end of anything. When I was sort of finding my way to my own peace with things, it occurred to me that a lot of times consequences were positioned as being so dire that I couldn't tell you exactly what I imagined as a child was going to end, but I always thought it would be the end of something. I want to go back to a couple of things you said. First, you said you started writing for yourself. Then you said that you went back to some of those things and couldn't even remember what had transpired on particular days. First of all, I firmly believe that we have to write for ourselves. And I've been in the position in which I've read things I've written that I didn't remember having written. And I certainly didn't remember having been compelled to think about the things I wrote about. Those things. I trust those things the most because I did write them for myself. And yet, in hindsight, especially when I don't recall them, I see Somebody I was speaking with once used the term universality,
Mm,
and I see the universality in them. Do you find the same things in yours?
I do. I do. It's somehow, some way, when you're writing from that heart space, not the head space, it translates into something that maybe I'm feeling, but I never thought about it. And then when I read my own words and your word universality around it, I mean, it's just like, damn.
Right. I'm no psychologist. Carl Jung called that I think he called it the universal unconscious, or the collective unconscious. But
Unconscious.
and now, I run the risk of sounding corny or something, but does that for you, as it does for me, reinforce the reality that we're all connected?
Yes.
That to me, that's what that universality implies.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we can achieve that if we write for any other
Mhm.
whatever than
Mhm.
ourselves,
Mhm.
because we have to examine what makes us tick to be able to do that. And to paraphrase something I said earlier, we're not the only people who tick that way.
Yeah. And and to your point, that's where it's somewhere along the way I became unapologetic about what I was writing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To what extent do you think that fading sense of apology derived from your making your world bigger?
I think it goes back more to the high participation, low attachment. You
Wow.
know, I'm gonna be with that. I'm just gonna be with that. I I want to be present. I want to be conscious. I want to have presence. I want to learn. I want to grow. And I don't need to be right. Just don't make me wrong.
How how
Yeah.
how do you mean don't make me wrong? Do you mean don't suggest that I'm wrong, or don't tell me I'm wrong? How do you mean
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. A little of both. It's like we don't have to agree at all. That's not the point at all.
Yeah.
It's it's a farmer and explorer conversation. It's the same thing. I'm gonna take a position on something, and this is my position, and we can talk about it. And I'm super interested in your point of view, but don't you can't sit there and tell me all the reasons why I'm wrong because I won't listen to you. You can.
Well,
You can, and you can try to educate me or you can share your points of view. I'm totally good with that. So, I am and I'm going back to that was the freedom in my writing that I could continue just to write from places, that were for me. They're not for you, and you don't have to like it. If you love it, I think it's great, but you don't have to.
I
But then don't come back and tell me that the the way I was expressed, my feelings around, um, the birth of my children, all the reasons why that's incorrect, because that's not your story, it's my story.
and it seems to me that I was gonna say related to. No, it's not. It seems to me that's no different from interpretation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I always think that if people interpreted everything exactly the way I do, the world was in serious trouble.
Right.
And so, and there have been a few things along the way that have taught me this too, but the idea of telling someone that their interpretation of something is wrong is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that an interpretation could be wrong is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can put that in religious dogma. You can put that on the political force. You can put that anywhere. This is really interesting, and I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I this brings up something for me. Is when I wrote this children's book, I woke up in the middle of the night, and the whole thing just poured out of me, literally poured out of me. The backstory of it, Mark, was in the war in Israel, and you know, it's just TV coverage, and you're watching both sides, and everybody is. But I'm seeing the children.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the children in this, and I just thought to myself, how will these children going through this experience, will they learn about forgiveness? Will they learn about courage? Will they learn about gratitude? Will they have, how can they grasp those concepts at such an early age when they're going through such turmoil? And that was the inspiration for my book. And it is teaching children what about courage and compassion and forgiveness and gratitude and generosity.
I was reading something, seems to me over the weekend, maybe it was late last week, about resilience. Mm-hmm. And resilience is only learned through adversity. Mm-hmm. Which obviously enough is a very difficult thing for children to comprehend, let alone accept. Mm-hmm. So I guess the best we can do is hope. And given what you were just citing, hope that their parents survive to be there to help them learn those lessons. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to say that we're coming to the end. Please tell us the name of your book and where people can find it. And if people want to find you, there you go. Where they can find you.
Your light shines brightly, the story of you.
And it's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Yes.
And if folks wanted to get in touch with you for any reason, how might they do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn is really the best, under Carolyn Lebanowski.
Okay. Carolyn, I am so grateful that you made this time for me. Very, very grateful. This was wonderful. And I hope you won't be surprised or threatened if I ask you to do it again.
Of course not. And Mark, I just want to say thank you. You are doing great things. And the fact that you are making this platform, giving people permission to tell their stories, because every story deserves to be heard, is such a beautiful compass to live your life by. And I'm just so grateful for you, my friend. So grateful.
Thank you. I'm grateful to you for saying that. And I'm also going to share the credit with Deborah Beauvais, who owns Dream Vision 7 Radio, for giving this to us. So I thank you, Carolyn. I thank everyone who was good enough to join us today. I hope you will join us in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.